SN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
And we are back on the Financial Survival Network. It's Kerry Lutz here, and we're real happy to have John Manfreda from Wall Street for Main Street talking about these latest job numbers. I mean, they come out right before the July 4th weekend, before anybody's got a chance to take a real close look at them. But you know in your heart of hearts that they are fraudulent to the core, and then Monday rolls around, everybody's gotten a chance to take a closer look, and of course, your worst suspicions are confirmed. John, welcome back. How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, always a pleasure. So am I right? I mean, the numbers are just rotten to the core, right?
Yeah, if you actually look into the details, as always with the government numbers, the devil's always in the details. And if you look at all the jobs created, were part-time jobs. In fact, over 500,000, I forget the exact number, but it's over 500,000 full-time jobs with benefits were actually lost. So what possibly could happen is a lot of those people could have lost a full-time job, and as a result, because they're unsure about income, or they could have just picked up 2 part-time jobs, and that counts as 1 job created. So that's a very likely scenario. Or what could have happened is a lot of people, because of the Obamacare regulations, they could have fired, let's say, 2 full-time workers and hired 3 part-time workers. That counts as 1 job created by the company. So that's a very real scenario which could happen. In fact, the thing about this recovery since 08, 90% of all the jobs are part-time jobs.
Yeah, pretty amazing that, yeah, this recovery, if you want to call it that, it's not really even a recovery, is it?
No. And if you actually look into a lot of the gross, like factory orders, goods, those were down. The funny thing is the jobs numbers go up big time, but factory orders going down, which doesn't make sense because you have more jobs, people have more income to spend. And not only that, if they're recovering from the worst recession, once they get the job, you think they would, just common sense wise, they would get some things they were unable to afford, or hey, I got a job, I can get a new computer, I don't have to have this old broken down one, or I could get some upgrades to my car. So, and the service sector even slowed down. That was another number that came out. So if you look at a lot of these other numbers, they actually help support the fact that these job numbers are low quality and low paying jobs.
Yeah, they're low quality, and but leave it to the Ministry of Truth and Propaganda to get the headline out. All they did was buy a headline, strong job growth, 288,000 jobs added, and that's all they care about, because they know that the mainstream media is not going to do its job, which is look beneath the surface. I mean, the Wall Street Journal will go a little bit beneath the surface. The New York Post will go beneath the surface, but none of the others bother, right?
Yeah, I would agree. That's all you hear about, most of them. But the thing is, you would see a lot of people are going to alternative press finances. And I think one of the reasons some of these, like the Wall Street Journal, is doing a little bit, even Yahoo Finance did an article saying a lot of these jobs aren't quality jobs. And I think one of the reasons is they're losing ratings now.
Yeah, credibility. You lose credibility, and there goes the eyeballs, because people are just like, oh, another one of these stories, because this is a story that, it affects you, because you're out there, even if you're lucky enough to have a job, you see your friends out there, they don't have jobs, and it's a question of you just can't fool all the people all the time anymore because they're on to you. They know the game. And all these fancy numbers, all these green shoots, recovery, summer and all that, well, it's all past. And we're left with the same crummy economy. And they're even picking up on the fact that the healthcare is sinking the economy, all the ultra intense regulations that are being passed, regulations from the EPA, from all these government agencies passing reams and reams of new regulations. It's all having a negative effect on the economy. We actually need to be heading in the opposite direction, need to be empowering people, not further hampering their ability to start new businesses and to be, doing entrepreneurial undertakings. And, when you look at the Gallup survey and other surveys that have been really pro administration for a long time, you see that 2/3 of the country, 70% of the country believes that the country is on the wrong track. And that's not just foreign policy wise, which, there's enough foreign policy debacles to go, to fill a newspaper in its own right, but it's economically, people understand that the country is headed in the wrong direction, right?
Well, yeah. Well, the other thing too is if you want to know what people really think of the recovery, you can look at Obama's approval rating. If the recovery was really as strong as they say it was, he would have a high approval rating. But a lot of people are dissatisfied. His approval rating's in the 40s, which if you're creating 288,000 jobs a month, that would not be, no president would have an approval rating that low. Mm-hmm. It's just not possible. And so it's obvious that the recovery is becoming undone. And I think one of the reasons that they want to push this recovery is, I think when it comes to QE, I think this is happening in the precious metals manipulation. But I think with QE, they're starting to realize the marginal theory of utility, where if you keep doing it, the more and more you do it, the less effective it is. So I think they might want to push this recovery story for a little bit longer, so they can end QE. And what I mean by ending QE is not ending the money printing. I mean, they're not going to buy treasuries or mortgage-backed securities. They're going to try another policy tool. Which one it is, I don't know. I think right now their main goal is how to get the banks lending again. And I think they're just unsure about how to get the banks lending again. So this tapering, quote unquote, might just give them time to come up with their next policy tool.
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing is to stop paying interest on the excess reserves at the Federal Reserve, right?
Yeah, I think that will probably be the first policy tool, is stop paying excess reserves. They might be debating if they can create enough inflation that would force out lending so they can make money on that instead of inflation eating away at their excess reserves. One thing I think was a failure of their QE is they thought they could create enough inflation where they would have to lend it out, because despite getting interest, they would still be losing real value. But I just can't prove that. I'm just trying to figure out what irrational people do. But the biggest myth, though, about this inflation thing is I even hear a lot of people saying, why aren't we seeing the inflation numbers? And you even see some pro-inflationist people saying it's because of the velocity of money or consumer credit. I personally think we're seeing it. It's just not showing up in the CPI because of substitutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the CPI is a bad approximation of, inflation's taking place in the money supply and, as they call it, monetary equivalence, basically credit. It's just that it doesn't exactly filter into the CPI or into the general price level as expected. We know that from Austrian economics, that it doesn't you don't just flick a switch, boost the money supply, boost the credit in circulation, and watch prices go up. But, certainly the stock market and real estate in Manhattan and in other high-flying markets, you've seen tremendous increases, which you could definitely pin to the low cost of money, to the artificially low interest rates, and to the increased money supply. But, from a purely Austrian standpoint, these things take time. They don't just happen once the printing press starts up, right? I mean, it just happens when it happens. And when it does, then watch out, because it's going to be bad. Yeah,
my interpretation is that inflation is the expansion of the money supply, and it's not even
right.
A rise in prices. A rise in prices are an effect. Now, for an effect to show up, it takes time. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and it's an effect, exactly, cause and effect. And hey, when we come back, let's talk more about it. And let's talk more about precious metals, what's going on there on the Financial Survival Network.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Urgent alert. Ex-Secret Service agent claims it's worse than people know. One of Obama's former Secret Service agents recently smelled a rat. What he discovered inside our government was so devastating, he only saw one option. He quit. What's worse, he fears what he found could affect your job, your neighborhood, and most importantly, your family, very soon. It's worse than people know, he said in a recent interview, and I'm not trying to scare you either. We too share his concerns. This is why we've devoted the better part of 3 years collecting solutions for nearly all problems created by intrusive governments, and we've succeeded. Go to hiddensecrets1.info to check out all the details. Our panel of insiders have devised a legal but sneaky set of solutions to help you reclaim your privacy from the NSA, opt out of Obamacare, and make a bundle from little-known investments and small business opportunities. Simply visit hiddensecrets1.info. That's Hidden Secrets, the number 1.info.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Do you have Medicare or health insurance through your employer? If so, listen up. The healthcare reform wasn't written to save the healthcare industry or even to lower healthcare costs. Shoot, it isn't even designed to insure the uninsured. It's just a temporary political byproduct. Like a flat rock you step on in a swiftly moving stream, Obamacare is just a means to an end. Want to learn more about Obama's ultimate objective? Then you'll want to review our latest research presentation found on oclies.com. In it, a health expert and industry insider explains what you think you know about caring for your health is about to drastically change in 2014. Plus, he details the simple steps you could take to save thousands of dollars per year in health costs. It's free for you to preview at oclies.com. Don't waste time. What you don't know about the healthcare reform could hurt you and your family.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
And we are back. We're talking with John Manfreda of Wall Street for Main Street. So, yeah, the whole definition of what inflation is, in a way, it's correct, because for the average person, you don't care if the money supply is $85 trillion or if it's $500 billion. You only care about the purchasing power of the currency that you have. But, from a strictly technical standpoint, what happens to that purchasing power is directly attributable to the currency. And right now, the currency really is the total credit outstanding, because, the actual money supply is kind of a secondary thing, because it's really the credit out there that really determines the value of the dollar, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I would always use I would say that's correct. The money supply.
Yeah.
M1, M2 money supply. So that's what I think it determines. And I think we're definitely seeing it's just the CPI, they allow substitutes, so you can do lower quality products. They don't count food and fuel.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always show up at one place. Like you see it in the stock market, you see it in the housing market, and they count housing inflation, they say, is bad, but they count high home prices as good. So they're not going to count high home prices as inflation. And not only that, I think you see it in the bond market, because the fact that it hasn't tanked yet is just keeping it afloat.
Yeah.
But since you don't see rising nominal prices, they don't think it's inflation. But the reality is the fact that it's not tanking shows they're inflating it.
Well, the fact is that if they weren't messing with interest rates and money supply, prices all over the place would be going down, and you would be having what would be called deflation. So the fact is that prices are staying the same or going up a little is definitely inflation, but it's not perceived as such. It's an interesting thing that we never really talk about because, for the first, from 1776 to 1913, we had 0.33% per year, what you would call increase in prices. And that was directly attributable to the fact that there was no central bank for most of that time. So the fun only began in 1913 with the chartering of the Federal Reserve, right?
Yeah, that was probably the worst year in American history. The income tax, the Fed, and it just led to everything worse. So, and it was the year the government was able to buy off voters now. They didn't have to make them make tough decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And it's all been downhill from there. Amazing. But speaking of which, then we go to our precious metals markets. I talked with David Morgan last Thursday. He said, you always look for the day after a holiday weekend for a raid to occur. And sure enough, gold and silver were under attack from the early hours of yesterday morning. But they really wound up down. Gold was down 50 cents for the day, and silver was down like pennies. So it just petered out at the end of the day, which I found kind of fascinating. There was no enthusiasm for this raid, was there?
No, and I personally think we're at the marginal theory of utility for precious metals manipulation, where just the more you do it, the less effect it has. And it's having just a less and less effect. So it's sort of like running the mile. When you first do it, it's really tiring and exhausting, and it kills me for the rest of the day. But, the more and more you start running that mile, the less painful effect it has. And I would say this is, in fact, but the only thing is the running the mile is actually healthy for the body in the long term. The precious metal manipulation isn't healthy for any type of market. And that's what I think is happening, is that marginal theory utilities coming in. And there's probably, one of the reasons it's probably occurring is there's probably not enough metal to really dump onto the market now. China has theirs locked in vaults.
Yeah, safely ensconced.
Yeah, and Iraq bought some gold, I would say, a couple of months ago. Now we know why.
Yeah, I wonder where it is now. It must be under somebody's palace, huh?
Yeah, so...
Well, there was an interesting meeting today I'm reading about right before we started in London about what to do about the vanishing gold fix. And, Zero Hedge, master of sarcasm, right? And snarky financial journalism. There's really not enough. And who's in charge of organizing, figuring out what's going to replace the gold fix? And if you're not familiar with the gold fix, it occurs twice a day. I don't remember the exact times, something like 10 and 3 o'clock in London, where a bunch of guys get together and they kind of...
Fix the price.
Yeah, well, it's not quite that.
Yeah, no, I was just joking.
Yeah, but
They have like a fixed sort of price at that time.
Yeah, it's based on order flow and demand and supply, but basically they fix the price. I mean, the name of the company is like Goldfix LLC. I mean, and they've been doing it for like over 100 years already. The silver fix is gone as of August 14th. Kitco would like to be the official silver fixer. I just don't see it happening, but you don't really need it, except I think all these derivatives contracts refer to the London silver fix and the gold fix. So somebody's got to do it. And it's really an irrelevancy other than these contracts. I don't think anyone really cares about it, but they're getting together. And the guy who's trying to put it all together is the guy in charge of the World Gold Council, who's this guy, John Nugee, Nugee. And he spent the bulk of his career at the Bank of England, where he was the chief manager of the bank's reserves. And I think you know where I'm going with this. When Gordon Brown, who was most recently prime minister of Great Britain, when he was head of the Bank of England, at one time they had a fire sale and they sold off 200 tons of the Bank of England's gold reserves at a fire sale price, ostensibly because they didn't need it anymore, but in reality to bail out a number of banks that were underwater on their shorts, on their gold shorts, on the carry trade, which Gordon Brown didn't even understand what a carry trade was. And this guy Nugi basically saved the day. We don't know which banks were really underwater, but we think we know. Could have been HSBC. We're not sure. And now Nugi's trying to come up with the replacement for the gold fix. So this is Zero Hedge's snarkiness. It's they're just saying. And in other words, the man who assisted and consulted Gordon Brown, a man so clueless about finance, he didn't and still doesn't have any idea what a carry trade is, let alone one in gold. Basically, is the same man tasked with making the London gold fix fair, efficient, transparent, and unrigged. One can't make this up.
Oh my God. Yeah. The gold fix, I just think it's stupid. I don't think there's any need for it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have fixes for oil and other things. I don't see why we need one for gold.
It's just the derivatives. They specifically refer to the London fix in the terms of the derivatives contracts. And what do you do about those contracts, John? I mean, are you going to go reword them all? And they go out for years and years and years. It's a problem for these derivatives contracts. I think that's the only reason you need a fix is because of these contracts. Because if there isn't one, then the key reference price for these derivatives contracts cease to exist, and you have to come up with something for these derivatives contracts. That's the 800-pound elephant in the room. They're not talking about it. I think that's the reason. I think Bix Weir nailed it. Say what you like about Bix, but I think he's very astute in his observation about why they need the fix.
Yeah, it could be. I never saw a big thing for it, but it could be right. But I would say this fix story is a non-event. I think so. And I just don't think it's that big of a deal. I just haven't been too...
It's not, except for that one reason. It's a statutory contractual issue about how do you set the price of the derivatives contracts. It's the only reason you need it. Otherwise, it's an archaic little charming little vestigial feature from when the sun never set on the English Empire. But otherwise, there's no need for it. Anyway, John, we got to go. Just tell us where we find your work again.
It's at Wall Street for Main Street. It's WallST for MainST.com. We also are on YouTube and Facebook.
All right. Excellent. And just go over to financialsurvivalnetwork.com, sign up for our newsletter there. If you want to support the show, just go to clubfsn.com. Anything you want to contribute is greatly appreciated, and we got gifts for you there. John, we'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.